Hey everybody, JJ here. Welcome back for another Wednesday edition of Zoom Networking. Thank you guys to you that are on the call right now. Really appreciate your participating. Our speaker today is an unbelievably successful real estate investor. She's an entrepreneur, a business person, mother, housewife. She is the straw that stirs the drink for her family, runs a tight ship, and just is an absolutely wonderful person. Someone I'm honored to call my friend, MeiLani Hock. MeiLani, how you doing today?
I'm so great. It's so good to be here.
I love these calls. I love the calls because I get to see my friends who are guest speakers, and I get to see the people that come on the call that come to listen to you speak and the other speakers. And, you know, real estate's about relationships. And, you know, with this forum that I've created, if that allows people to get to know other people, then that's great, because we want to build relationships with other like-minded investors. Hey, with no further ado, take it away.
Awesome. Thanks so much, JJ. Okay, guys, I'm honored to be back. This is awesome. I love this community. The last time I spoke, it was on a Saturday, and it was like crazy how many people were on for a Saturday night. Like, this is a diehard community, and I'm grateful to be a part of it. Anybody who was on beforehand, I tried to send you a Facebook message and request. I do most of my stuff on Instagram nowadays, but would love to connect one way or the other. So reach out if you'd like. Can you see my screen okay, everyone? Give me a thumbs up if so. Awesome. If you can, in the chat, will you type in if you have any Airbnbs? No judgment. This is all a safe space. I just want to see what we're talking about today. If you have 0, 1, 2, 5, none, not a zip, 0, zilch. Oh, I love it. Okay. These are great. That makes me happy. And I love the not yets. Instead of just the no's, right? Like, it's coming, and I'm glad you see that it's coming. So that's really helpful to me. I think Cherry was on here last time, JJ. So she's a diehard and she's back again. I don't recognize any other names, but if I've seen you before, then give a shout out. It's good to see you again. But we're just going to jump in and get rocking and rolling. As I mentioned, I mommed really hard today. So I'm sorry if my voice is a little bit funky today. And maybe I'll talk about that in a minute if I have time, or if the vibes send us there. Just a little heads up, a little background on me actually is that I was the daughter of a general contractor who used to build restaurants, churches, houses. And then he retired, and he's like, what am I going to do in retirement? And he's like, maybe I'll start flipping houses. So he started flipping houses in Newport Beach, California. And my mom went to architect school as a mid 50-year-old, and she started doing the plans for the projects, and my dad would build them, and they started flipping houses, and they did great. They made millions of dollars, but then 2008, 2009 hit, and they also lost millions of dollars. And they said, don't ever get into this business. And I was like, okay, that sounds awesome. I'm totally going to get into this business. And so fast forward and a little bit, and I'll tell you more of my story in just a minute. But of course, after some ups and downs and some other things, trying to figure out what I wanted to be when I grew up, I started flipping houses. I've done new construction. I have notes. I'm really into notes right now, buying, trading, brokering notes on houses, long, short-term rentals, have a podcast, author of a book, and I do a lot of coaching and mentoring also. So that's kind of my background. But the real me, okay, so that's like the resume, MeiLani, right? You know, but the real me is the mother of 5 young children. My oldest actually just turned 13, so I have a teenager, and they are amazing. They are my world. They are my everything. And they are my why, right? So many times as real estate investors, we hear, what is your why? Why do you do what you do, right? Why are you sitting on this call right now? Why do you go to conferences every weekend or whatever you do, right? Why? And they are my why. And if you want to get in even deeper of my why, the real why is that I was in a dead end, not a dead end, because honestly, like, I was doing pretty well as a salesperson, but the lifestyle was a dead end for me, right? And I was climbing the corporate ladder and thought I was loving life, but I was kind of miserable, right? I had these 5 kids that I barely saw, and it was when. So I 5 kids, right? And they all have names, but it's sometimes easier to just refer to their number, right? So number 4 was 6 weeks old when number 3 on his 2nd birthday was diagnosed with brain cancer. And when that happened, that was back in 2014. At that time, I was dabbling in my dream life, right? I had my real estate license and I was like, oh, I'm going to start doing that maybe on the side, right? I'm going to become a real estate investor on the side. I'm going to all these things. But I was still working my sales job, and the money was fine, but the life wasn't what I wanted it to be, right? And when AJ is his name, was diagnosed with cancer, our whole lives changed, like just like that. And it was during this time that we started to reevaluate, what are we doing with our lives? We're telling our kids, you can be anything you want to be when you grow up. Just chase your dreams, just go after it. And here we were stuck in jobs that, even though the money was okay, the money was great, it still wasn't providing the lifestyle we wanted. And we came home and we were tired and exhausted. And when AJ was sick and we were going through our cancer time, we had to figure out what is this all there is to life? Is this what we really want to do with our lives? And our last name is Hock, and we came up with 2 mottos during this time. And the first one is, Hawks do hard things. Hawks do hard things, because I want my kids to understand that it's not a matter of if hard things are going to come, it's a matter of when, right? Because I strongly believe that that is why we are here on this earth, right? Is to experience trials, to learn, to grow, and to become stronger. And so we learned, we have this motto of Hawks do hard things. And I could go off on a whole webinar just on that topic alone. But the one that I'm actually going to talk about is our second one. And during this time, a lot of my friends that didn't know how to handle or what to say during this time of our lives would say, hey, man, is it just hard to get up in the morning? Or do you just sit and ask, why me? Why did this happen to our family? And to be honest, guys, there have been many times in my life that I have thought, why me? Like, this stinks. Why is this happening? And I don't want to offend anybody's beliefs or anything, and I hope you'll respect mine as well. But I strongly believe that there is a higher power out there that I'm going to call God. And I believe that God believes in us and knows our potential more than we do. And so instead of saying, why me? Instead, we say, why not me? Why not me? Because that higher power, whatever that is for you, believes in you and knows your potential, and knows that you can do so much more than you know possible. And during that time when we were going through cancer and radiation and a bunch of different stuff, I strongly believe that we had kind of a protective bubble around our home. And I think it was because there were so many people praying for us around the world, literally, that we had this protective bubble, kind of like in Incredibles. Now, maybe you guys don't have Pixar movies streaming in your house as much as I do, but in Incredibles, there's a girl and she has this magic power that she puts a bubble around everything when you need it to be safe. And I feel like we had a bubble around our house during that time. But there have been times that I have thought, why me? And I've had to depend on that, why not me? To remember that there is a reason. Why not me to do hard things? Because it is carving me into the person that God needs me to be. Okay. Now, during this time, I remember sitting with my husband, and we were about to start radiation treatments. We had already had brain surgery. It was an emergency brain surgery from his diagnosis. It happened about 12 hours later on his 2nd birthday. So we like to say that he was given the gift of a clean brain for his 2nd birthday. But we still had to do radiation. We had to do a lot of other things. And at this point, we didn't know what our future held with AJ. And I remember going to my husband, and when we were dating, we had all these big dreams, right? We had talked about, hey, someday we're going to have a big family, and we're going to be real estate brokers, and we're investors, and we're going to do everything that Robert Kiyosaki has taught us to do in every book we've read, and all of these different things, right? Like, we had these big dreams. And so I remember sitting at the breakfast table with him and crying and just saying, honey, I've got this crazy idea. What if we did one of those things? And you guys, I will say, you might know that we did really good at the big family one. We had checked that off the list. We rocked at that one. Okay. But all the other things on that big dream list, we hadn't done very much of. And I said, what if I actually did it? What if I left my job, and what if I started full on investing in real estate? Right. And my amazing husband said, wow, well, we've kind of got a lot going on right now, but if you want to do that, then I believe in you. Let's do it. So I did. And I've heard some of you are fortune builders. At that time, I jumped into fortune builders and I just immersed myself fully. And that was in 2014. And I started my first house flipping business and started doing wholesales and long-term rentals. I started dabbling in notes, but I really didn't get into notes until many years later, 5 years later. And but I created this business and I was like doing it, right? Like I was doing it and it was awesome. But then all of a sudden I found myself back in that same thing of we were making good money. We were winning awards and like, it was great. It was awesome. But I found myself back in that same place of, I felt like I almost had created a job for myself again. And I would hire project managers and I would train project managers, but then things would come up and I felt like it was still so demanding on my life and my personal life. And so this balance, right? Finding this, not just a balance, but almost a harmony between the work MeiLani and the resume MeiLani and the mom MeiLani became this battle, right? I was so worried that one of them was just going to like drop and just go away and I was going to fail at one of them. And so about this time, so I started this business and a few years were awesome. But then I hit one year that was terrible. It was terrible. This was in 2017, at the beginning of 2018. And I hope none of you have been through this. I really, really hope. In fact, for those of you who join Fortune Builders or you join some sort of mentorship program, when you drop a bunch of money like that, 5 figures, multiple 5 figures, a lot of 5 figures, at least for me, like I look back and I think, oh my goodness, I was so naive. Okay, safe space, right? But I remember going into like the 1 day and then the 3 day and being like, dang, I'm just going to go in here and I'm going to take all the information. I know they're going to try to sell me on something, but I'm just going to get all the information and then I'm going to go do it myself. Like I am not going to sign up for any program, right? I really thought that I could learn everything I needed to learn within 3 days. But then I ended up, I did sign up because I was like, you know what? If it just saves me one lawsuit, if it saves me this, then it's going to be worth it, right? Which was true. I really believe that Fortune Builders, I would not be where I am today without Fortune Builders. And there's pros and cons to a lot of those programs, but I would not be where I am today without it. I do know that. But in this year, even all the training I had paid for, and it wasn't just Fortune Builders, it was a few other programs because I'm kind of a coach junkie. I love learning and I love learning from great people. And I've had some amazing coaches and mentors and I've learned amazing things. But despite all of that, this 1 year was crummy. It was so crummy. We had 2 different drive-by shootings at different properties 20 miles away from each other within 2 months. We were doing new construction at this time and we had 6 floor plans. 4 of them were the exact same. And the first one, we get a call saying, hey, we were supposed to list it a week later. We'd already taken pictures. Hey, this property is like totally flooded. Did you know that? And sure enough, this beautiful brand new property, was totally flooded downstairs because the plumber actually had cut one of the pipes about 1/4 of an inch too small. And you're like, dang, that really stunk. Like that's going to put us behind 2, maybe 3 months of additional private lending money, right? But then guys, it didn't stop there. That plumber had done that on all 4 houses. And so about 2 weeks apart, we got a call. Hey, did you know this house is flooded? Hey, did you know this house is flooded? Oh, that stunk. That really stunk. And then in the process of this, we actually got in a terrible lawsuit with our general contractor who was working on about 9 of our properties at that time. And it was like a really nasty divorce. I had worked with this man that I call a friend. At that time, he was like my brother. And we were going through a really nasty general contractor divorce. And it was terrible. And I couldn't touch my properties. And these houses that he was working on were supposed to hit the market in June, July. And instead we got caught in this terrible lawsuit and we didn't get them back until late November, right? Perfect time to get houses to put them back on the market. And I'll share a quick story that at that time, because we're talking about my kids, I remember going to the bus stop with my oldest, and he understands the magic of Christmas. And I said to him, "Hey, bud, I haven't seen your letter to Santa. What do you want for Christmas?" And he said, "Oh, Mom, I'm good. I don't need anything." And I said, "Come on, bud, what do you want? What do you want for Christmas?" And he said, "Oh, well, Mom, I only want one thing." And I said, "What's that?" And he said, "I just want you to be able to sell one of your houses." Oh, you guys, as a mom, that was rough. That was rough because I felt like I had put my family in a position, because of different choices that I had put them in a position that they were all stressing. It wasn't just me. It was me curled up in a ball in my closet many days as I was going through. This had put me in a depression, right? There's no way around it. And I think talking about mental health is a good thing. And at this point, I was in a deep depression because all of my big things had come crashing down, and we were on the verge of losing everything. We were on the verge of losing our home. At this time, we were leveraged over $4 million, and it was a terrible, terrible time. And even though I had some of the best mentors in the world on these different topics, I was still having these troubles. And for me, it was that higher power saying, "There's more. I don't want you to just stop at flipping houses. There's more, and I need you to do more." And so at this time, even though I know many of you out there are amazing at flipping houses and you can run it and you can figure it out, that's great. But for me, I was done flipping houses. I was burnt out. I was ready to switch and move on to something else. Okay. So it's almost as if for years I had talked about with my husband, someday we're going to do this, someday. Right. And we kind of were prepping ourselves, like training for a big hike, right? And we finally had the courage to go hiking up this mountain. We finally were ready to go at it. And we started climbing the mountain, and we didn't like get to the very top. Like, I'm not going to pretend like I'm Joanna Gaines or anything, guys, but we got to a good level that I could kind of see the view. And I realized, oh, wow, that view is really cool, but I don't know if that's the view I always thought it was going to be. And it was about that time that crappy year happened. Pardon my French. And when that happened, I felt like a mad avalanche came pouring down on me. And I just felt like I was suffocating, and I was in this very dark place. And at this point, I realized I had three options. Okay. I had to get out of the closet. I had to get out of this dark place where luckily I have an amazing husband that when I was in my dark times, he'd come and he'd lift me up, and he'd take my face in his hands and he'd say, "We're going to get through this together." And I realized I had three different options. I had one that I could dig myself out and I could just keep climbing, right? We listen to these pep up motivational speakers that it's like, just push through the hard. Y'all, I'm here to tell you that sometimes the hard means pivot. So you could just push your way to the top and you could make it work, right? But that didn't feel like what I wanted. I had kind of seen that view and I didn't know if that's what I wanted anymore. So the second option was I could dig myself out and I could go back down. I could just get off the mountain and be like, hey, I was actually really good as a salesperson and I was really good in corporate America. I'll just go back to that. I liked having health insurance. Maybe I'll go back to that, right? But I worried that if I went to the bottom of the mountain, I was so worried I'd never get on that mountain or any other mountain ever again. And so I knew my entrepreneurial spirit. I knew there were ways to make money that I could control, and I could control my life and being an investor. And so I was like, there's got to be a third way. There's got to be a third way. And that's when me and my amazing husband, we sat down and we were like, what does our dream day really look like? And if you ever follow me on Instagram or anything, you know that I talk about this a lot. Because you can go and start being a real estate investor, but unless you know what your dream day looks like, you'll never know if you got there. And I wanted to really clearly know, what is my dream day? What is the goal, right? And so we sat down and we made this long list. And we were like, okay, we want to spend more than 3 hours a day with our kids. And we want to travel the world with our kids. And at that time, being $4 million in debt, you guys, that was a crazy talk. And this was not that long ago. It was late 2017, early 2018. We wanted to coach our kids' sports and be able to have time to do those kind of things. All of this, we wanted to be able to live off passive income 100%. We be able to work from anywhere, right? And this just sounded crazy at the time. And that's when this quote really took over my life. I wanted to build a life that I didn't want or need to take a vacation from. And when I was flipping houses, I needed a vacation. I was burnt out. And I knew I needed an additional stream of income. Hopefully you guys are all familiar with multiple streams of income, right? Robert Allen kind of coined that term when he wrote that book, Multiple Streams of Income. And I love Robert. He actually wrote the foreword of my book, and I'm a huge fan. But I knew I needed another stream of income. And that's when I found the third way out of my avalanche. And the third way was, I realized that that avalanche had almost provided a bridge for me to still take everything, all the crummy stuff I had been through, and to use that to walk into something new that I had never thought about even doing. And for me, that was short-term rentals or Airbnb, right? And as I took that venture out, I could see this whole new valley that I didn't even know existed until I actually started venturing that way, right? And that's when I became hooked, because I knew I had learned so much. I wanted to still use subject to. I wanted to still use creative financing. I wanted to use all the stuff I had learned, but I just didn't want to flip houses. And I definitely didn't want $4 million of debt anymore. I was done with debt and I was done with risk. And so that's when I started carving out a path, because at that point I didn't have great credit and I didn't have any money. And so I had to get really creative with the things I did have and know. And so we started this path of creating short-term rentals. And I was like, you know what? I go big or I go home, right? So I opened my first 4 Airbnbs within 4 months just to see, is this even going to work, right? And then I realized this is working and this is awesome. Okay. So I just kept on going. But you have to have systems and you have to have a path, right? Now, today, I'm not going to have time to show you everything, okay? I don't want you guys to think that, like I did going into that 3-day seminary, that I was going to know everything by then. We're not going to have time to go through everything. And just a disclaimer, because I had a lot of conversations with attorneys over the last 5 years, and your success is up to you. These are just stories from me and my students. But hopefully you know that your success is up to you. And I really do think that any of you could be short-term rental superheroes. We don't call them super hosts because we might talk about that a little later, but I know you guys can all be. We want to turn you into super hosts, even if it's not super hosts. And if you know Airbnb, you know what I'm talking about. I do want to mention that AJ is doing awesome. He is doing awesome. And it was a 2014. So we're doing awesome. I cannot even believe that. What a day. Oh, thanks for the hearts. I love that. But you guys, I'm going to talk about it a little bit, just real quick. I hope that's okay. I love JJ's community, because this is a family, right? JJ's created this awesome family community. AJ's awesome. He's hilarious. He's actually in the talent show next week doing a comedy sketch. Like, who does that as a 3rd grader? And this is his 2nd time to do it. And he's hilarious and I love him. But that's just today, guys. I might get emotional. Like, I've told AJ's story quite a bit and I usually still get emotional, and I'm really proud of myself that I've actually held it together pretty well. But I might get emotional right now because, oh gosh, after 5 kids, you become a crier. I don't care who says anything different. All right. Today, I got to mom so hard. Like, I got to be a field trip chaperone, and we went to this random park and we did dip netting, and I was muddy and I was gross. But my 7-year-old's eyes were so proud that his mom got to be a chaperone at the field trip today. And that brought so much joy. And then, you guys, my plan was to come home and shower before this and maybe change a few slides. But my oldest actually was playing football today and he had a concussion. And I was in a position that I got to drop everything and go check on my baby. And I got to go snuggle him. And I am so grateful. I'm so grateful to be in a position that I don't have to leave projects. I don't have to ask a boss to be able to leave, but I got to just be a mom today. And yes, I have students, and I was, like, everything's still running with my students. Everything's still running with my Airbnbs because we've set up systems, right? But creating that life, creating that harmony in life with your business and your family or whatever that is. Maybe your family is like Rolexes and Lamborghinis, like no judgment here, right? For me, it's 5 kids who I love. But whatever that harmony looks like for you, like we're here for a reason, and it's to learn and grow. And it's to live our dream life and help others to do the same, right? So, all right. I'm sorry. I'll get off my soapbox and I'll talk about what we're going to actually talk about today. Now that I've given you a background of how I got into short-term rentals, today we're going to talk about rehabbing/flipping, whatever you call it, versus short-term rentals. We're going to talk about what do you look for in a property. We're going to talk about the different types of hosting. We're going to give some case studies of how much you can actually make. And then we're going to take our little break that we do in JJ's group, and then we'll come back for Q&As. Okay. And I also have 3 different options at the end that you might want to take a look at. Also, we're running a couple discounts for JJ's group, which are awesome. And one that I decided to throw in last minute also that I'm really excited about. So hopefully that will help. Okay. Just a heads up, when I say Airbnb today, because I'm going to say it about a gazillion times, I do not mean just Airbnb. Okay. Airbnb is like Kleenex or chapstick. Okay. We just use that as a term for a short-term rental. Instead of saying short-term rental, I'm going to say Airbnb. All right. But I am telling you that you want to know how to list on multiple platforms, not just on Airbnb, just in case Airbnb ever does anything crazy, you have access to other platforms. Okay. Now, let's dive into the difference between rehabbing and flipping versus short-term rentals. Okay. Like I said, I've been there, I've done it. And I loved the day. My favorite part about flipping houses was like the 2 minutes before the photographer came. Okay. Like, don't get me wrong. It's also fun at the closing table for sure. But I loved after, like, I had turned a house that used to smell like cat urine and have like, I remember one that they had like, oh goodness, what am I thinking of? Not bed bugs, but those, I don't know. It had so many bugs that I came out and they were all over my legs. And I remember the day that I flipped that one into something so gorgeous that I was like, just wanted to cry, but I always want to cry. So that's not saying a lot, but believe me, this was a special day, right? And the photographer was about to come in there. Everything just looked perfect. It looked perfect. And then a few days later, we got multiple offers and it was beautiful. It was great. I loved that. And I would get my big check and I'd go out and celebrate and be like, whoa, yeah. I don't drink. So, we'd go get a nice, steak and celebrate. And then I'd go to sleep. And the next day I'd be like, great, time to go find another project. Right. So that's life of rehabbing. But all of a sudden, when I started doing short-term rentals, there was this beautiful thing that happened. I spent 2 to 4 weeks opening an Airbnb. And then once I opened it up, this magical thing happened where money just kept appearing in my bank account. And it was this recurring stream of income that was awesome, right? Instead of those big sporadic treks. Now, hopefully with flipping, if you're flipping houses, hopefully you've got a pipeline going on, right? But this was really, really awesome to have this recurring stream of income. Okay. Now, like I talked about, with flipping, you would have these, you'd work and then you'd celebrate and you'd go find another one. Whereas with short-term rentals, depending on, I used to be able to open our properties within a week. It would be like it would be like hell week in football, right? Like, just let's do it all in 1 week. Let's do this thing. But due to furniture right now, it's kind of harder to do that because of furniture delays. So now I try to do it within 2 weeks. But then after that, it's very low key, right? It's very low key maintenance after you've got a property up and running. And things that might come up is like, oh, our coffee maker is broken. Okay, great. We will deliver one. Either we'll have one of a member of our team or we'll have the magic Amazon Prime guy deliver it tomorrow, right? So those are the kind of things you're dealing with. Or, oh, you know what? Our air conditioning is not working. We had that one come up last night. And it's like, oh, great. There are extra batteries in this drawer. If you could replace the thermostat and let us know if that works. Okay, great. It worked, right? So if you're setting up the right systems, then these are very low key things that come up. All right. And we'll talk more about that in just a second. Okay. Sorry. I've got my double screens kind of funny right now. So I'm just going to kind of readjust something here right now. Okay. Also with rehabbing and flipping, we're talking some big debt and loans, right? We're talking anywhere from like 150,000, depending on how big of projects you've got, up to $1 million, depending on where you want to be. Whereas for short-term rentals, the startup costs are super low compared to that, right? And very low maintenance costs. And depending on which way you go, we're going to talk about the 3 different types of hosting, but you could get started for about $1,000 all the way up to $15,000, depending on, I would say that has probably gone up to like 20,000, depending on how big you want to go, right? And you could go higher than that, but most of what we're going to talk about today is going to be between that 1 and 20,000 range. Okay. So those are the biggest differences between flipping houses and short-term rentals. Okay. Now I want you guys to each picture, when I say, oh, I'm going to stay in an Airbnb, I want you to picture what that means to you. Okay. And I'm hopefully going to blow your mind with some of these awesome short-term rentals that are on Airbnb. Okay. So here we go. Romantic bus in the forest, dome in the forest, clock tower guest suite, secluded in-town treehouse, dog bark park inn, and in Los Angeles, there are RVs going for $236 a night. $236 a night. That is crazy. Now that is a wicked awesome view, but y'all, it's still an Airstream. Okay. And then there are places on Airbnb where you can rent a hammock for $25 a night. Y'all, they don't even have a bathroom. I don't want to know where they're going to the bathroom because they're still going to need to go, but it's $25 a night to rent a hammock, right? That's crazy. That's crazy. Now, we're not going to dive into these super creative types, but I just want you to get your head around how the potential. Okay. We're not going to go into all these different creative ones, although you can totally do it. And a bunch of my students are making great money doing that. We're not going to get into how you can, if you have land, you can just rent it out as storage space, as boat space, as RV storage. We're not going to talk about that. We're not going to talk about how if you have a swimming pool, you can rent out your swimming pool like an Airbnb. If you haven't heard of that, that's something called Swiftly. We're not going to talk about any of those today. We are going to talk about the most basic, what I look for. Okay. Because in my properties, I do not have a single palm tree. I do not have a single ocean view. I don't have a single lake view. The things I look for are airports, hotels, universities, and hospitals. Okay. I look for these 4 things. These are more transient rentals. That's what we call them. Okay. Transient rentals. These are things that we know people are going to that area. And especially since COVID, people are moving away from public lobbies and they want their own space. They want their own kitchen. They want 2 bedrooms instead of a hotel room because they're traveling with friends. They're traveling with family, and whatever the reason, they love having that extra space, right? Other things I love that Nisha's saying is military bases, casinos, all these different things, right? There are different things to look for, but these 4, if you have 2 of those within 15 minutes, 20 minutes, oh, if you have 3 of those, oh, dang. If you have 4 of them, dang, let me know. I'll help you come and invest myself, right? Like, this is awesome, an awesome opportunity right now. Okay. This is very underserved. And we're going to talk about, I'll show you the quote a little bit later, but Airbnb said at the late last year that they need millions more hosts, because there is such a high growing demand for short-term rentals. Okay. So this is an exciting part of like real estate, right? And it's not nearly as risky as some of the other things I've done in the past, which makes it even more sexy, right? Which we'll talk more and more about. Okay. So here are the 3 different types of Airbnb hosting: ownership, arbitrage, and co-hosting. Ownership, arbitrage, and co-hosting. Okay. Now, I am okay with ownership as long as it is during one of these times. Okay. As long as it's under one of these circumstances. Okay. If you already have the place, okay, let's say it's close to or even inside your home. Maybe you want to rent out your basement or your mother-in-law's suite, or maybe you have a traditional long-term rental that you want to try it as a short-term rental, or maybe you have a lake house and you're like, yeah, I should make some extra money on that. Right. Then, okay. Yeah. Let's short-term rental that baby. Right. Also, if you've tested the neighborhood and you know it's good, if you know the occupancy rate, the going nightly rate, how the neighbors are going to react, then yeah, you go buy up that neighborhood, right? Under those circumstances, I'm okay with ownership. But that's because I've been through some stuff, guys, and I don't like risk. And if you're going to go and drop a big down payment just to get a short-term rental, you want to make sure that it has some sort of track record or that you've tested it. Okay. It's kind of like when you're dating, right? You're going to date somebody before you marry it. You're going to test it to see what quirks it has, if it really is everything you want to commit to for however long, right? So now let's talk about why we would want to use other people's properties. The first one is because you don't have to do the big down payment, okay? Remember when I was in a position and all of a sudden I was like, let's go out and we'll get 4 within 4 months. I definitely wasn't in the position to drop 4 down payments at that time because I was going through craziness, right? Also, like I said, it gives you a chance to date the property, date the location, date the neighbors before you commit to buying it. Let me just sidebar on this real quick. We have one property that when we went to go rent it, they said, would you like to buy it or rent it? And knowing, I'm least risk possible, right? I like least risk possible. So in my head, I was like, you know what? Let's lease it. And if all goes well, we will offer to buy it next year, right? Because we'll talk about that in a second, but that's a big selling point. With all of my landlords, I say, hey, I hope to be the last renter you ever have, because when I'm done renting, when you want to sell it, I hope to buy it, right? I'm not necessarily agreeing to do anything, but I am saying that is my intention when I move into every single house. And then if I find out, you know what, this house is actually kind of crummy, I'm still making money, I'm still going to rent it out and make money, but I don't really want to commit to marrying it anymore. Well, this property in particular, after about 10 months, it was going great. I was like, let's buy this baby. Let's buy this sucker, right? Well, about that time, we had somebody move in next door, and he was not very nice to our guests and would sit out front, and he would yell profanities at them and lots of different things. And every so often it would go quiet because we figured out that he was going in and out of prison. And this was a great neighborhood. And I was like, you know what? I love this neighborhood so much. I want to buy both of these properties. So I called that landlord and the one of this guy, and I said, can I buy your property? I started with his first. And I was like, can I buy your property? Because I wanted to kind of get rid of that tenant as soon as possible. Now, let's just side note on this. That landlord had signed a 5-year lease. Okay, let's just be educated investors here. And even though you might at first be like, yes, a renter for 5 years, that is a terrible idea. Do not sign a 5-year lease if you're a landlord, because rates might go up like 2 years, maybe. Okay, but do not sign a 5-year lease, because now they are stuck with this guy and they have to get attorneys in there to try to get him removed. Okay, because it's a hot mess, right? Long story short, I don't want to buy this property right next to this guy right now, knowing that they are stuck next to this guy who's giving us bad reviews for 5 years. Okay. So I have the option as my lease renews to be able to leave if I don't want to, right? I can break up with my dating before I commit to marrying. Okay. So that's what I'm talking about when I say test the neighbors, right? Test the neighborhood, test the HOA to make sure that they're okay with it. Right. Then once you've proven and tested the area, then then that's a different thing, right? Also, this allows you to test drive any, like, wouldn't it be cool if you could do this on your personal house? And it's like, can I just live in it for like 6 months or a year? And then I'll let you know if I really want it, right? To see if like the roof leaks or the air conditioning is kind of funky and doesn't go to all the rooms in your house. All right, that might be really the condition in my personal house, that one of my kids' room like doesn't get air conditioning, right? And so you get to find out all the weird quirks because you're dating this property before you commit to marrying it. Okay. Now, in this case, this is going to start out the same. Okay. There's a house and Mr. Landlord puts up a for rent sign, right? This house is for rent. Now let's go back to when I was talking about rehabbing houses. Now, every once in a while, when I was flipping houses, I'd find maybe a good deal every once in a while on MLS. But for the most part, my best deals were when I was approaching cold calling, right? Or trying to find things, finding. This is different. This is literally people putting up a for rent sign or a for rent by owner, and they want to rent out the house. And you come, this is what I usually look like, me and all my gaggle of children saying, hey, This is perfect. This is exactly what we've been looking for. Thank you so much. We are going to keep this thing so clean. We are going to have it professionally cleaned multiple times per week or month. We're going to keep it in 5-star status. You're going to be so impressed. And we can use whatever contract you want, but we just have to attach an addendum. And that's when we add the fourth ringer, and we hope that we are your last tenant, because if and when you're ever ready to sell it, we would really like to be first in line to buy it. Okay. That is your pitch. That is the pitch that you would practice in the mirror over and over. It's just that simple. Now you can tell I haven't yet said, I'm going to Airbnb this property, but I've dropped hints along the way. And then once you kind of got their interest, that's when you say, I'm kind of a unique renter. Can I tell you a little bit more? Okay. And that's when you're going to tell everything. Definitely tell them everything. Okay. Don't go hiding it. I've had students that decide to ignore me. I'm like, why do you pay me money and then you don't listen to what I say? But they do it anyways, and they've gotten in trouble. Okay. So make sure you are telling your landlord. And once you've got them on board, hot dog. A lot of landlords out there, they don't just have one property, they have multiple. And once they realize what you do, they're going to start sending you more and more properties. Okay. So now let's talk about the difference between the last two. Okay. So we've got arbitrage and co-hosting. The biggest difference is with arbitrage, you pay monthly rent, right? You set up your bill pay just like a regular renter. You sign a 1-year lease and you just pay your monthly rent, right? Whereas with co-hosting, you get paid a percentage of the revenue. Okay. A percentage of the revenue minus the cleaning fees. All right. So the other terms for this that we don't really use, but we kind of use, are that arbitrage is technically subletting, but we don't like to use that word because a lot of state contracts say subletting is illegal, and you'll have realtors call you and say, this is illegal. And it's like, well, if you don't use an addendum, it is. But if you use an addendum that overrides your one little word in your contract, then you are good to go, right? So you've got to have a good addendum. All right. But technically, arbitrage is just like subletting. Okay. And co-hosting is just like being a property manager. But we don't use property manager because property managers, depending on the state you're in, have to have a special license. And if you're holding security deposits, you have to do special things and stuff. And you don't want to go through all that. And this is kind of a unique new niche that we don't call property management. We call it co-hosting. Okay. So that is just something to be aware of, just to kind of get them in place. Okay. So arbitrage and co-hosting. Now, the other difference is that usually with arbitrage, they're just regular landlords, right? They just know, like, they're kind of programmed, like, get 401k job, get, W-2 job, and get rental properties and rent them, right? Like they're happy making their like $200, $300 a month over mortgage, right? When you pay them rent, they're happy with that. Whereas with co-hosting, they're a little bit more investor friendly usually, because they're going to be with you through the up months and through the down months. Okay. So if you go to your local JJ's meetup, you go to your RIA, you go to whatever, and you hear people and they hear you're in short-term rentals, and they might be like, oh, hey, I've kind of wanted to get into that, but I don't really have time to do it. Then that should be like a light bulb in your head. Okay. They might want me to co-host for them, right? As soon as you hear them say, I've been kind of wanting to do that, but I don't really know, that should be a light of co-host. Okay. Or like you managing their properties. And just last week I had somebody on, we do live Q&As, and my live Q&A last week was with, if you ever want to do one, just let me know. It's in our Facebook group or on our email list. We'll let you know. We had a guy named David Bergman, who is awesome. And last January, January 2021, he had, I think, 13 properties, and now he has 75, because he just co-hosts them, and there was a need. And you guys, if you are near any of those 4 things, there is a need for good co-hosting companies right now. This is a hot opportunity for you to go from 0 properties to 20 properties to 75 properties if you want. If you know me, I'm not going to pretend to be something I'm not. Okay. I just want to make it really clear. My system, I love the 20 to 30. I love the 20 to 30. We've gone higher, but then we have to pay overhead and we have to build up a team a little bit. And that's not what I like to do, because honestly, Airbnb is awesome and it makes an easy 6 figures per year. But I've got this on autopilot that I don't want to just do this. Whereas David, who now has 75 properties, he's like all in. And this is his thing, that the way he's having multiple streams of income is multiple houses. Whereas for me, I'm kind of like I'm addicted to opening businesses. And so this is like one of my businesses, right? Because I also love to do notes, and I also love to do stock options, and I also love to do retreats, and I love to do time management coaching. If you're on my personal Instagram, you'll know that that's all time management. You won't see much Airbnb stuff on my personal stuff, because that's what Why Not Me Academy is for. If you want to follow for Airbnb tips, then follow Instagram, Why Not Me Academy. Okay. So when you're trying to figure out how many you want, you've got to figure out, is this like, am I going all in? Am I going to like build this team? And David was awesome example of, he has like 5 people on payroll and they've got a good thing going and they're doing awesome. But is that what you really want? Or are you more like, you know what? I just want it to be like me. For me, it's me and my husband. And then we just switched over, and now we have 3 girls in the Philippines that they answer all of our inquiries, right? They're awesome. They love their $6 an hour, and they're awesome. They have 24/7 coverage. And then we have our cleaning teams, I should say, and then our maintenance guy, right? And so I don't have anybody on payroll, because back in my crummy year, I had people on my payroll, and that was part of what was making me nauseous, was knowing that their family's food on their table was dependent on me. And so that's just a me thing, right? But a lot of my students, they have more than 30, right? So if that's what you want, great, I'll help you get there. That's awesome. But there's 2 different avenues, right? So you just got to figure out what this is and what your dream day looks like, right? And the reason why I say all that is because with arbitrage, one of the things with arbitrage is that you are going to own your own furniture, right? Because you're just renting this property and then you take it over and you do it. Let's say in 2 years or whatever, Mr. Landlord's like, all right, we're not going to renew the lease. I'm going to sell it. Okay, great. Can I buy it? If you want to. If not, then be like, okay, great. And you go find another property and you move all that furniture over to the next property. Okay. So you've got all of your startup costs, or just roll over to the next one. Right. And then where with co-hosting, this is a little bit more where you get to negotiate a lot. And usually I make my owner pay for it, but I still like to keep the control of actually decorating it. By the way, JJ, tell me if I'm ever running too long. You just keep me posted. Okay. The owner pays for it. Just learn from my mistakes of, I used to let the owner actually decorate it. And if you want to go that way, then okay. Recently, the last straw, I should say, was about 5 months ago, where we let this guy decorate his own thing. And we came, and he was so sweet. Bless his heart. But like, all the color scheme didn't match. It was supposed to be a family friendly house, and that's great. But he had pictures of naked ladies all over the place. And I was like, oh goodness, like, we talked about it being a family friendly. He's like, but it's Eve from the Bible. And y'all, I love the Bible. I believe in the Bible, but I don't need a naked picture of Eve in this family friendly house, right? So be careful when you let the landlords decorate it. Like, beware, just like brace yourself before you walk into that house. And let me just side note on that. Remember how I told you that now my husband and I work together, because he actually runs that part of it now. And he's like FaceTiming me, but we love this landlord. Like, we love our landlord so much. He made me say it. He's like, honey, we just wanted to get your opinion on the art that Manny found. What a great find. And I'm like, no, and I was like, he came home and I was like, you are a terrible human. Like, that was your job to go and figure that out. And he's like, I didn't know how to break his heart and tell him it looked terrible. Long story short, I recommend giving your landlord a menu and saying, here are the 4 beds, 5 beds, 6 beds you get to choose from. Here's the artwork. Or let us know how involved you want to be on choosing the artwork. Otherwise, we're going to choose what goes best with the house according to us and other decorators. Okay. So just let that be. Okay. I'm giving you that warning. Okay. People are always going to ask, which one's better? Should I do arbitrage or should I do co-hosting? And the answer is it totally depends. It depends on your location. It depends on your phase of life. It depends on the phase of your market. If you have a bunch of Airbnbs out in your area and you're like, maybe this is getting too saturated. First off, it's probably not. 95% of the world is not saturated. There are a couple places that are saturated, but even then there's still opportunity, because if you're in one of those areas, I recommend you becoming a co-host manager. There are all these properties that need help. They need systems because they did not invest in a coaching program that has system. They did not figure out their own systems. If that's what works for you, right? You can do this and you can systemize this and you can take on 5, 10, 15, 20 properties, making 20, 25% each one. And because there's already the Airbnb supply out there. Does that make sense? But if you feel like, but some areas, most areas, I feel like, yeah, you can also arbitrage. Okay. The good thing about co-hosting is there's really not that startup cost, right? Because the landlord's going to pay for the furniture. You don't have to pay rent. You don't have to pay first and last month's rent. The utilities stay in the name of the landlord, right? So you don't have to pay for anything up front and you just get to start rocking and rolling with this. Okay. Whereas arbitrage, still awesome, by the way. You're going to just pay your first and last month's rent plus your security deposit. Okay. All right. So now we're going to talk about how much you can really make in this business. Okay. And I'm just going to throw out some examples. First off, if you ever see something like this, a great looking chart on a Facebook ad or an Instagram ad, my advice is to run. No, I'm just kidding. Maybe not run, but it really drives me bonkers. I fired my marketing team last year because they really wanted me to do this in my ads. And I feel like it is lying. And I am a woman of integrity. If you know anything about me, you know, somebody asked earlier, was it Tony that asked JJ what his superpower was? And I really thought about that. Maybe one of my superpowers is that I want to be a woman of integrity. I love helping people get to their dream day and figure out a plan to get there. That's one of my superpowers, but also like I have integrity to a fault, maybe. Okay. But I fired my marketing team because they really wanted me to start running things that I was showing this. Why would I maybe not want to show this? Because this is showing how much it grosses, right? This is showing how much it grosses, which is not impressive. Okay. What if this property might make 43,000 and let me caveat, this is 10 properties. Okay. These 10 properties might make 43,000, but what if like the mortgage and the rent on it is like 50,000? Like I could be losing money on this. Okay. So let's talk about what we're actually making on these properties. Okay. Here's an example. So taking that same thing, this was from August of 2021, and the occupancy rate was 94%. Guys, 94%, and I do not have any palm trees. I don't have any Disneyland next door. I don't have any of that. I'm in Raleigh, I'm in Cary, I'm in Durham, right? And, but yeah, we're still at 94% because we have hospitals, we have universities, we have hotels, and we have airports, right? So of these, of that amount, that 43,000, 3,000 of it was cleaning fees. Okay. Now look at this property. This is not anything fancy. This is nothing to write home about. Nobody's going to take a Instagram selfie and be like, look at me, I'm at an Airbnb, right? This is not fancy, but you'll see that I actually kind of love this neighborhood. We've got one here and we've got one here. I love to put a wreath on my door. So that one's mine and that one's mine. Okay. Now on the outside, it's not that great, but we try to make the inside really comfortable, really welcoming. We make it nice, right? A lot of our interiors are updated. They don't have to be, but a lot of them are. And depending on your market, and that's one of the things we teach you in our free how to like project how much you can make. That's one of the things we talk about is whether it's worth updating or not. So we turn it into a nice inside, right? So let's talk about our costs. All right. So for this property, the rent is $1,200. And I know like you people in California are like, what is it? A cardboard box, right? No, I know that this varies depending on where you live, right? So this property is $1,200 rent. Back in August it was, and it's been raised since then. Cleaning was $320, utilities was $220, and fees. This is kind of like the platform fees or different third-party platforms we use that help with our dynamic pricing that we can talk about later if anybody has a question on that. But so our total operating cost for this property is $1,940. So remember the risk, MeiLani, would be like, okay, if I'm signing a 12-month contract and I have rent of $1,200, then 12 times 1,200. Okay, I know that that's like the most money I can lose this year, which compared to $4 million was like, oh, easy peasy, right? So that's the most amount of money if nobody books at all, right? But people are going to book, right? If you do it right, they're going to book a lot. They might even book 94%, right? So the revenue on this property was $3,605, and this was taken the average of 3 months. Okay, so it just wasn't August, but I took it the average of 3 months. Subtract the operating costs. So the net on this property was $1,665 per month. $1,665 per month. Does anybody remember how much was I paying in rent? $1,200. So here I am. Yes. Here I am as the tenant making more than my landlord. And if something comes up, like the roof leaks or the air conditioning breaks, do I have to fix that? No, I call up my landlord who's making $1,200 a month and he fixes it, right? So this is awesome. Now, I will say that this property, I just got a text last week that the team is reevaluating it because they are raising the rent to $1,450. Is it still worth it to me? Yeah, it's already set up. We've already got it, like it's running. We might only make $1,400 a month. That's okay with me. That's okay with me because it's just one property, right? Let's go to a different one. Okay. Now, I saw somebody Deanna put that the 3,500 is the average there. I get it. Like across the country, you're going to see all different, and you just have to run the numbers and you have to understand how to run the numbers. Okay. But we can help you do that. Okay. So this is another property. This rent is $2,500, the cleaning fees, the utilities, the fees. And so this operating cost is $3,695. All right. Now let's look at the revenue. The revenue on this one is almost $7,000. We subtract out the operating costs. And so the net earnings on this one is about an average of $3,265. This one, the rent has raised since August also, and they raised it $200. So on this one, I might only make $3,000 a month. And you know what? I might have to replace a coffee maker or a bedspread every once in a while. But that's okay because I've set up this property that magically in my bank account keeps putting in anywhere between these ranges of number. Okay, so now there's going to be ups and downs with the occupancy depending on where you are. There's going to be ups and downs with rates, right? But these are all things to consider I hope you can see how awesome this is, right? Like how awesome this is and how much less risk it is compared to so many of the other ways of investing in real estate. So back in 2020, I usually don't open properties in July because that's when I travel with my kids, right? And at this time, because of craziness of COVID, I actually had 5 different landlords come to me and say, hey, you've reached out to me in the past. Do you still do that thing that you do? Can you open this property as an Airbnb? I'm like, yeah, I can actually. And so we opened 5 properties within 10 days, which was awesome. The last one was actually our own home, which this is a form of house hacking, if you've ever heard of house hacking. And we were like, you know what? Our HOA, it has a thing in the covenants that you have to rent out your house for a minimum of 90 days. So we're like, all right, peace out. Let's go travel. So we went for 4 months and we hopped in the minivan. I know this might not be your dream day, but it was mine. So we loaded up all 5 kids and you guys, it was amazing. We went across the country together. We went and saw all sorts of things. We went to Chicago. We went to Mount Rushmore. We biked the Golden Gate Bridge. We went to the Alamo. We did all sorts of things. And there is no way I would have been able to do that if I was flipping houses, if I was working in a corporate America job. There's no way that I would have been able to do that. And every time, you remember when we talked about my dream day? It wasn't that long ago. It was when I was in $4 million of debt. And I said, I want to travel the world with my kids. And you guys, that's a reality now. That is my reality, that I get to work from anywhere and I get to run my business from anywhere. And I get to live my dream day. Now, some people are going to say, how do you do it? And the answer is, it isn't the force, guys. It is a path. It is systems. You set up systems and you be smart about it, and you follow that path so that you can set up this recurring income. And we want to help you realize that you don't have to go through the avalanches. But if you're going through an avalanche right now, goodness, we want to be your hand to walk you across the bridge. Okay. Now, obviously this is not risk-free, but it is tried and tested, and it's not nearly as much leverage as rehabbing is. And I hope you're seeing how pumped up I get about this, because it really, truly has changed my life. It truly has. This is what I talked about earlier, that, it actually was April. Oh goodness, time flies. That Brian Chesky, the Airbnb CEO, said that the company will need millions more hosts to meet the surging demand of Airbnb travelers. Demand for vacation homes soars even as people go back to work, and this just keeps on going. So I know I wasn't able to answer all questions, but hopefully you guys have questions that we're going to get to. But one of the things I always get asked is, why do you do this? Aren't you training your competition? And the answer is you're not my competition. You're my colleagues. It's kind of like if we opened a Chick-fil-A franchise, right? If people go and try your chicken nuggets and your chicken nuggets stink, they're terrible, they're not going to come and try my chicken nuggets. And I want them to try my chicken nuggets. So I want to help you be better. All right. I think that's all my slides, JJ. I think that's it.
MeiLani, wow, that was serious gold nuggets. Serious gold nuggets. And, I know, talking about your son and your family definitely, strikes, touches everybody's heart. How could it not? Your family's beautiful, your kids are beautiful, and you're obviously a great mom, and that's awesome. If you guys are watching this video right now on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you guys are on the call right now, hang on, because we're about to go to the breakout rooms and do some networking. And everybody else, thanks for watching the video. Look for Flip Side Up to have more videos in the future. And in the meantime, we'll see you guys later. Over and out.